This is all going. I hit the start streaming button. Is something live? Come on. Come on. SideQuesting TV. You can do it. I don't know. Oh, wait. Something's going on here. See if the sound works. Is it working? I don't know if it's working or not. Testing. What? Somebody say something.
Hey.
How now, brown cow?
See if the sound works. Sounds like it works.
That's good.
One more check here. Switching to microphone. Somebody say something.
Hey, how now, brown cow?
All right, that worked. Hey, okay, let me get started. And I'll get the tweet going here. Yes, I figure we'll do the good old-fashioned quick roundtable of what we've been playing, and then we'll dive into the news. Reed we'll say he's an E3 veteran, let's just say. But yeah, should be a fun show. We'll definitely be talking a lot about E3 today. So, in 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to the SideQuest.
Damn, didn't distract him.
I was looking at the camera and
Got him.
Dang it, you did. Your weekly journey into video games and video game culture and everything that's in between those, like the Oreo between video games, video game culture. That would be us, SideQuesting. SideQuesting.com, the SideQuest live here on the old Twitch. I am Dolly Domofsky. Joining me, the cat you see above me, waiting patiently still for Animal Crossing, is the one, the only. Oops, I should probably mute that. The one, the only. Sam. I'm going to call you Sam Kinnison from now on, because I like that better.
All right. Hello.
I think that might be taken.
Oh, you think so?
I think that might be a name. Please give me something to do. They have canceled college sports.
Oh, geez.
And that's what I did. So somebody give me something.
And all
else to
other
do.
sports, apparently.
Yeah, and all other
NHL, MLB, MLS, everything.
In which case, you're able to continue on, I guess.
Sam Dixon, everybody. Sam Dixon. Also, to Sam's, I guess camera-wise, it would be to the left. It would be Aaron Scratty Bones, Twitch affiliate, Canadian Man of the Year, Kelly.
I was at the bar and they had the sports channel on, and it was just a really old dude sitting in front of a camera going, "They canceled the golf. I don't know what to do."
They canceled the golf.
It is 2 more days before ESPN runs out of material.
I think someone posted a great GIF, whatever, today of ESPN Classic, the Undertaker rising up from the dead, and ESPN Classic, and this week's fantastic guest to my left and the camera's left. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Reed Albers. Is it Albers? Was that close?
Albers.
All right. Reed, how's it going?
Doing good. The Capitals would have played the Red Wings right now,
yes.
And they probably would have scored a lot of goals. Novi would have had a 50 goal. He would have had a 50 goal season, but instead we're stuck at 48, and I just don't like that number. It sucks, but
hopefully, in the next, I don't know how long these pauses are gonna last. It is, man, the 30 minutes last night when every freaking domino tipped over was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And then they trotted Vince Carter out onto the court to shoot like a free throw, and that was the end of his career.
That was the end of his career. Oh my God, you're right.
They're like, oh crap, we better get him in there because we ain't never having no basketball ever again.
Oh geez, that's insane. I forgot about that too. Oh Lord. Well, we have an awesome show planned for today. We're going to talk, of course, as usual, what we've been playing. The big news, obviously, is E3 and coronavirus, COVID-19, all the cancellations, all the stuff that's been happening.
I have an actual sports question before we get into it.
Sure, go ahead.
So one of the things that got canceled or is in the process of getting canceled is all the NCAA stuff, right?
Oh, it's canceled.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't there a big argument for why those players don't get paid is because they get like free tuition and like their school covered and stuff?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if that's canceled, do you think that commission is going to make them pay for school now because they can't play?
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
How many people do you think are going to be pissed off about that? How long do you think it takes before people start going, they're not even playing? Why are they getting school for free?
Oh, I'm sure that's already started.
I can tell you our switchboard has not stopped bringing off the hook for the past probably 4 days. I'm not even sure if I can be involved in this conversation.
Technically, you're not
the
allowed.
situation it is.
Well, actually, yes, Sam, you are currently involved in something sports related. Reed, you used to be involved in something sports related. And I watch sports, and I'm a huge sports fan. And then there's Aaron,
Hey,
the Canadian who could care less about sports.
hey, I almost played professional soccer.
Did you really?
Yeah, I blew my knee out when I was during tryouts for the provincial team.
Wow, this is something I did not know.
Yeah, I was a keeper, and I blew my knee out and got into video games.
Here's how crazy things are. You've gone from being the one that rips on the rest of us for in fun times about sports to being the most athletic person on SideQuesting in like the span of 30 seconds.
I was on a volleyball team too.
I was just about to ask how you played soccer being so tall, and then you said goalkeeper, and it's like
goalkeeper.
Makes sense.
You just stand there and dive to one side or the other and hope the ball hits you.
I'm literally tall enough that I could just stand there and hold my arms up and be blocking the top of the crossbar.
How tall are you?
I am 6'9".
Oh my god! Okay, I'm 6'6", and I was like, he's not tall, and now he's tall.
6'9".
You're just little man.
Little man. Yeah. Anyway,
I managed to derail this podcast into sports, and this is not the Sports Quest.
It's not that we know of, although it will eventually have the Crapted podcast.
Oh, it's gonna be so good. Are we actually doing that?
I think we should totally do it. A sexy cryptid podcast.
It's just every episode's gonna be about Mothman.
Sexy Mothman. Yeah, hey guys, it's been a week. Before we get into that craziness of the week, let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing. Reed, since you're the guest this week, I'd love to hear what you've been playing.
So I just picked up this indie game. It's on early access on Steam called Ymir. It's spelled Ymir, and it's a 4X multiplayer strategy game where you develop a civilization of pigmen starting at the Stone Age. And you have to gain resources. You have to give them everything they need to survive. Something I read in the tooltips is that they will create ideas on their own that you don't control, and you have to satiate what they need. You can play online with others. You can invade each other. It's kind of like Europa Universalis, but with pigs. So that would be kind of one of the best ways I'd kind of put it is just a little bit, because it's got that economy building. And then since this is such a big sports cast, I've been playing a lot of Football Manager since there's no sports to watch.
Real sports.
Yeah, Football Manager 2020, which is just like watching a lot of spreadsheets and building a team. And that's a lot of fun because my striker right now is like socially awkward and doesn't want to, like, isn't meshing with my team, and we're losing a lot, but he scores a lot of goals. So, I guess
Are you playing it on
contract. PC? Yeah, on PC. Okay. Football Manager on the PC. And then kind of the last game jumping in there is I finally started the Outer Worlds. I've been putting it off for a while. I love Fallout, love those games, love the Obsidian version, Fallout New Vegas. So kind of started it a while back, liked it, didn't really get too far into it though, got a little busy. And so now, we're all on house arrest, aka quarantine. So might as well get back to it.
I'm notorious for saying I'll get to a game for sure. I'm really excited about it and then never getting to it. But Outer Worlds is like one of the ones that I've been circling like a shark around for a while now, and I think as soon as I finish one or two other games, I can hop into it. But it was one that was we talked about a lot about over the last few months on SideQuesting. A lot of folks liked it.
Death Stranding.
That's not the one. No, but it's
What I like about it is I'm already horrible. Like it's I think it was like the tutorial level is when you land on the planet and you see the guy who's like, yeah, I need some help, but I'm hurt. And you're just like, okay. And I shot him. And so, I mean, I don't know if you like should come back and he does something cool. I'm sure that someone on a forum's like, well, you shouldn't have shot him because later on he gives you this item, but he's dead. So that's just sort of how I play those games.
It's all right. I don't know how to role play. And what I think I've mentioned it before, but I always end up defaulting to like the good side of, like Mass Effect, Fallout. You can do good stuff, and you can do some bad shit out there. And I always end up doing the good shit, the good stuff, because I can't find it in myself to really role play as like an asshole, or to, kill somebody's pet, or not pet the dog, or whatever. It's difficult for me.
The problem with those games these days, that it's like, it was either Mass Effect 2 or 3 solved the whole good choice, bad choice thing. The scene where you're chasing a dude down and it gives you the renegade prompt. And if you hit it, you like smash the dude out the window. But if you don't hit it, it just keeps standing there and like cutting to different camera angles, and it just keeps prompting you to hit it. It's like, well, you got to hit it now. It's like that was the pinnacle of good choice, bad choice.
Yes.
Mass Effect 1 had some of the best, because it was one of the first time. It wasn't the first time you had bad choice, good choice. Games like Baldur's Gate have always had that. D&D likes and stuff like that have always had that. But I thought it was one of the first mainstream games that really introduced that to gamers. And I remember I was playing hardcore Renegade in Mass Effect 1, and we got to the point where you're on the planet where they're researching the medicine for the genophage, the virus that is killing off the Krogan. And Rex stepped out of line, and I was commander, and he disobeyed a direct order, and I was not having it. And so he says something like, what are you going to do about it, Shepard? And it says like Renegade option. And I'm like, I'm sure I'm just going to yell at him. I hit Renegade, and you pull out the gun and you shoot him in his face, and then he's dead. And that's how you get Grunt Grunt comes in the second game, because you don't get Rex. You don't get him as a party member in the second game. But I remember feeling like I was like, okay, I shot Rex. I didn't care. It was until Mass Effect 2 when people are like, oh, Rex was the best. You get to see him. He's king of the Krogan now. He's the coolest character. Who would ever shoot him? And I'm just like,
jeez. Rex is the best. Rex in effect, as we used to say. Good. And you're going to be, I take it you're going to be working from home for a while too.
Yeah, with Power Spike, I just work from home. So like for me, this is pretty much normal. What I'm kind of upset about is like I got away from working in an office to get away from commuting and traffic. And now I'm like, I bet if I try to go to the gym, there's going to be a traffic jam from all the people working from home and like wanting to go do something. So the traffic has probably come to me.
Oh, so tell us about Power. We've had Dan on the show a million times, but I want to hear about Power Spike, your role over there, if you can talk about it.
Yeah, I can, absolutely. So I'm the director of marketing, which is exactly what it sounds like. Power Spike, what we do is we work with brands and we connect them with influencers. Twitch, Mixer are the two platforms we mainly work with. And we work with the influencers to help them kind of make a career out of this and be able to get sponsorship from the regular. So it's something I really enjoy. I know some people probably see on Twitter that I used to be a blogger a long time ago before I got into video games. And I remember when I was doing that, I had a pretty good audience, but I didn't know how to monetize what I was doing at all. And so I kind of really enjoy what I'm doing at Power Spike, because there's a lot of kids who are just like me who are making podcasts or streams. They're getting audiences, and they're kind of starting to feel out, well, how do I turn this into a career or to a side gig? And that's something that we help out with. And I take it very personal, because I think it's something that if I had when I was blogging and doing sort of hockey influencing for the Capitals, I really would have loved it. And it just wasn't there, and it is there now. And so I understand where they're coming from, and I want to help them.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. It's this sort of the missing link between influencers, or I want to say influencers, but it's people that are getting into streaming and people that are actually trying to make, people that are trying to make money or are living off of it. And then the brands and those companies at the other end, that connection was always very difficult or tenuous, I think, at best.
Yeah. I think that there comes a time when someone's streaming, and a lot of people will start streaming. It's fun. You guys do a podcast, It's fun, and then it starts to gain an audience. I think there comes a point where people start to see that they, one, really either like doing this, or two, is that they're starting to grow an audience, and they're just kind of like, oh, this is unexpected. And so there comes a point where you kind of stop just being what I say a streamer, and you start becoming an influencer, because influencer really is a job now, and people shouldn't be ashamed to say, I'm an influencer. You could actually put it like on your tax documents this year that you are an influencer, cool. And it would be recognized, just because it's so ubiquitous a term. But I feel like that's sort of the difference between streamer and influencer, is someone who's kind of made that conscious decision to, I want to monetize my streams. I want to make money. I want this to be a side gig or a career for me. And so I think that's something that's really cool about the streaming industry back in 2011 when Justin TV kind of became Twitch and that started out. Everyone talked about game streaming, and now all you hear about is influencer marketing. And I think it's because there's that very definite line now between I'm streaming because I like to stream and this is cool, and I'm an influencer and I'm building a brand and I'm trying to turn myself into something that can be monetized, or even just like if I always tell people is if you have 25 concurrent viewers, that's enough people to get you sponsored by many companies. And that's really a starting point. And so I feel like that's a starting point where people start to take it a little more seriously and say, well, I'm an influencer now, and I'm going to start doing the things that influencers do to grow their streams, as opposed to, shit posting and just having fun and streaming. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because that's what I do. I don't really stream like an influencer. I just like to stream every now and then and play Planet Zoo and stuff like that. So
that's awesome. That's cool. Let's go see Aaron. You can do it, man.
Let's talk about the fact that fucking Fast and Furious 9, the release date was pushed back a year.
That's your influencer talk right there.
I missed that today. I just saw it right now. And
really?
I can't. What am I going to do with my May?
What do you?
that movie was coming out in a month and a half, and now I got to wait till April 2021.
That's that's kind
of.
I
want to see Vin Diesel drive a car off a cliff, attached to a rope ladder, and use it as a grappling swing to catch up to a goddamn stealth bomber.
It's interesting how some of these delays are, indefinite. Like, you'll see some of these movies pop back up, towards the middle of summer potentially. But then some of these other ones, like for this movie, is now April of next year, right? Because they have that certain time frame that they're really aiming for, and then it's been kind of crazy, but. Yeah, we'll get into some of that stuff a little bit later. What have you been playing though, Aaron? Since you've you've grabbed the microphone from us.
I've just been pretty much cleaning up the end of Division 2, the expansion. That's an okay story. That story in that expansion, I think is going to be lost on anybody who got into Division 2 without knowing anything about Division 1, because the whole thing is based around a dude from Division 1. So, but no, it's cool. It's a really short expansion, but that's what you get. It was like $40. I probably, if I hadn't been running around getting all the collectibles and doing all the side stuff, you probably clear that story in 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. But yeah.
How much was it? Like for the expansion, how much was it?
They charged. I paid something like $52 for it, but I'm Canadian, so I want to say that I want to say that works out. I want to say that works out to $39.99 American. Which maybe a little expensive for an expansion, but that's coming off the back of the fact that they just dropped the price of the base game to like $2.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Which was that seems steep, but if you're dropping the base game down that low, build the install base. That's a pretty good deal there.
I bought the base game about a week before the expansion came out. The price had been dropped for a week or two by that point already. And you mostly play that game by yourself. But what I didn't realize was it has like zone chat like an MMO would, even though it's not an MMO. But it's muted by default. And I figured out how to unmute it when I was just hanging out in like the White House. And the very first thing I saw was a dude bitching about the fact that he bought the game full price, and it was just long enough ago that he couldn't get a refund. And everybody else in the chat being like, everybody just blocked this guy. He's been bitching about this for like a month. Like he's on here every day complaining about it, and just people ripping the shit out of this guy. I was like, yeah, this is what I want in an online game. This is fun. So of course I got in on it.
That reminds me of Baron's chat. Like you just don't see that in games anymore, where you have like entire communities and chat rooms where just one person ruins it all, or jokes go organically. I'll never forget the Steve Irwin jokes in Baron's chat when it all happened. I mean, those days are lost. Those days are lost in video games. Baron's chat was
incredible too, because like Baron's chat, whatever prompted Baron's chat to turn out the way it was, everybody just accepted that as a That is a fact of World of Warcraft. And we're going to take all the stuff that we would say anywhere else, and we're just going to go intentionally to the Barrens and run around so we can talk like that.
I remember someone very well explained it, was that you had like 2 starting zones right next to the Barrens, and the Barrens last from level 10 to 20.
Yep.
And to get to the next levels, like 20 to 30, you had to go through the Barrens. So you had, it was literally like a traffic jam of players, except you would stop to get involved in fighting in the Barrens with each other in text chat. So it's one of those video game phenomena we'll never see again.
And because it was such a huge zone with such a wide range of levels, all the end game players would come in there to do world raids on the crossroads, that town there. So you get all them in there too.
Yes, God, World of Warcraft.
I
miss talk about that all day.
I miss that game. I can never play that game again. I'm thinking about playing it right now. Probably 12 years since the last time I played it, maybe 10 years, and I'm getting ill from the burnout that made me leave the first time.
Aaron thinks that, the average human male thinks about sex every 7 minutes. Aaron thinks about World of Warcraft every 7 seconds.
Yep.
I did WoW Classic at the end of last year, up until about middle of October, and I was just like, I'm 33 years old, and the grind is too real, and I was like getting through like Duskwood, and I was like, this is really fun. This is how I remember it, but oh my God, this game takes forever. And why did I do this when I was in college? What was I thinking? And then I was also like, oh wow, Thinking People's a lot of fun.
When I was thinking about buying WoW Classic, I was remembering how much fun I had on the grind from 1 to about 45, and then remembering 45 to 50, which took about as long as the first 45 levels. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that, and then I didn't buy it. Makes you
appreciate games that don't have that grind anymore, especially as you're older, because you're like, I don't have time for this. And WoW Classic is very much like, what's up? You wanted this. You asked for this. And it's like,
dummies, you asked for this. Remember? Really, this is why we moved on.
We fixed it, and you wanted it broken.
Yep.
Yeah, no. So it was pretty much just Division 2, just cleaning that up.
Cool.
And that's pretty much been what I've been playing. I don't think I've touched anything else. Now I'm sitting there thinking. Now I'm wondering, but I'm pretty sure that's it.
All right. Yeah, we're just ahead of the big.
I lied.
Apocalypse coming here. What else?
I played a bunch of You Must Build a Boat.
Oh, I love that game. Did you play it on mobile or on PC?
No, I got it on Steam. It was was on sale for like $3.99. I think I paid $5.49 for it. So that conversion seems like what I just described.
That works.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it was like $3.99. I was like,
what's that?
Match 3. Okay.
I have not heard of this one yet, so I'm googling this.
You've
right now.
never played You Must Build a Boat?
No.
Did you play the original or the prequel to it, which was called 10 Million or 10 Billion?
Yes.
No, I didn't. This is all new to me, and
it's great.
And this looks like something I would be all about.
Yeah, they're cool. They're little adventure games basically, where you're trying to accrue points and resources to build out some sort of base. But all the gameplay is like a match 3.
Their next
gimmick
game
is that you've got a dude.
Yeah, their next game is, I think it's called Photographs Puzzle Stories.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So the gimmick is that as you're matching 3, you got a little dude running across the top. And it's fighting enemies and like opening chests. And so you have to match keys to open the chest, and you have to match swords and magic staves to fight the enemies. And certain enemies are strong and weak to things, and so it's pretty cool. But those games are neat.
It's pretty awesome.
I'm gonna check that out now.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Thanks for reminding me about that. And 10 million, I'm gonna be.
I guess it wasn't on sale. I guess it just cost $5.49 Canadian. I just checked.
Nice.
So
it
is.
Yeah, so $3.99 US, $5.49 Canadian. Okay.
I can do conversions in my head.
That's a great game. Well, I've been playing Wolfenstein 2 still, so I'm getting through them. I'm just about finished with that guy. Then I'm gonna jump into Wolfenstein Youngblood, and we've had. All right, so here's the situation that we're in. Here, I thought this week would be much easier because my boss is actually on vacation for like 3 days this week. I'm thinking, all right, things are going to be real easy for me. I don't have to worry about doing I don't have to worry about doing a lot of work around the office. I I'll take it nice and slow. I always tell myself that when my boss goes on vacation. But then whenever he goes on vacation, I actually end up working like 5 times as hard because I'm doing his job, surprisingly. So I'm like, I go from being just a lowly designer who sketches all day to a design manager, and then somehow involved in finance and customer relations, all that kind of stuff. So my only free time, I used to bring the Switch. Well, I do bring the Switch to the office, and I'll play at like lunchtime or something for a little bit. But now my only free time is bathroom time, and then when I get home, I'm just too tired because I've been working later because he's gone. So I've been just kind of catching up on Wolfenstein. Anyways, the bathroom game time, of course. Sam already knows Pixel Puzzle Collection from Konami is still one of the best, still the best Sudoku, the best Picross game out there, which is awesome.
Game of the year for the past 2 years.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then surprisingly, I've gotten back into Dragalia Lost for some reason. I don't know why, but I have. And then finally, Mario Kart Tour. I started playing the multiplayer in that game, and yes, I'm getting new holes ripped into my behind as people that are just flying past me and destroying me, kicking my butts. But more so, Nintendo is not doing a good job at filtering out. I think I've mentioned this like 5 times. They're not doing a good job at filtering out really horrible racist and sexist names and swearing and stuff as just names and screen names for the game. Because anytime I open up the app and go into a race, at least 20%, at least 2 to 3 of the racers on there have just the worst names possible,
and they're all playing Toad.
They're all playing Toad. Yeah, exactly.
I wonder why. The old Morehouse problem. That's a game that has a tremendous problem with that.
Yep. So yeah, just kind of lighter for me this week. Looking forward to cleaning up my Switch time and jumping in, getting ready for the big release next week. But Sam, what have you been playing, dude?
I've been playing a really difficult game. It's called After Effects.
I like that.
Publisher Adobe. I mean, we were. It was end of season, beginning of a new season, so it was really a hard week at work. That all got kind of thrown in the trash as of yesterday and this morning. So I haven't really had time to play much of anything. Was really trying to get everything out of the way for Animal Crossing because that'll be about it for the next 2 months or so. Probably fit some Doom in there.
Let's give a shout out to Jeff Grubb, who is currently reviewing and playing Animal Crossing, and the notification pops up every time I'm playing Wolfenstein or Ring Fit or something that says Jeff Grubb playing Animal Crossing. I'm just fucking pissed off, man.
Just rubbing it in.
Just rubbing it in. Yep.
Nintendo just needs to do the right thing and release Animal Crossing tomorrow.
They can save the world if they release that game tomorrow. They can say, you know what? 1 week early, everybody just be happy. And I swear, the entire coronavirus issue will go away immediately.
No, it'd be great because by the time everybody's pretty much finished with Animal Crossing, they'll come out of their holes and have to rebuild the world. But luckily, because it's Animal Crossing, we'll all have experience in how to build a lovely society and deal with property loan sharks.
So, and then as soon as that's done, it's Final Fantasy time, so we can go right back into the hole.
I've been joking that Animal Crossing will have some sort of bug, like the World of Warcraft corrupted blood, that happened where, and just very quickly, World of Warcraft had a bug from one of the raids that if you got it, it spread to other people, and then people went around, and it was basically like a plague, and it actually got studied by the CDC for pandemic response because it would kill your players. And I was like, man, wouldn't that be funny if Animal Crossing launches and then suddenly Tom Nook just infects everybody, and it's just oh my god, we can't escape this thing.
Don't let strangers visit your town. They're carrying disease.
Don't let strangers
close the borders.
Just get a little political here.
The Corona virus.
Tom Nook is selling walls to keep people out of your island.
Oh goodness. Well, that's what we've been playing. And I'm sure we'll be chatting more hopefully next week since most of us will be home. I have a good strange feeling that I'll be working from home. They just announced our cases went from 2 cases to 12 overnight, so I'm half expecting.
I heard that the topmost health person in Wisconsin, I think, announced that they had 100,000 cases of coronavirus.
Ohio.
Ohio. And I
100
wonder how much of that is true. And if it is true, I wonder how much of that is true in other states, because that is terrifying.
So they don't even have that many tests out there yet. I don't think
They
100,000 tests.
they
have
don't
been
even
made.
have that many
No.
confirmed cases in the world
Yeah.
yet.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
I think they just hit it, but still, there's not even that
Did
many
they just
tests.
did it? Yeah.
Oh, good lord.
I hate
Uh-oh.
that people are like, F it, I'm just doing it. There's like, I read one story about a guy, he's like, oh, I've got coronavirus, but I'm going to my daddy-daughter dance anyway. And it's just like,
no.
I keep seeing stories from people who are like, fuck, I think I've got coronavirus. I should get tested. And then they just keep getting the runaround. Like,
yes.
and then I saw a story about like the NBA team who like 2 of the players got coronavirus, and all of a sudden they had 50 test kits.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, it's like, oh yeah, you guys got those test kits awfully quick.
I keep touching my face nonstop. I'm doing it right now on camera, and I'm just like,
doing it too.
I won't be here next week. I'm going to be in a hospital bed.
It's definitely crazy times with the coronavirus, and
Yesterday I was sitting at work, talking to the guy who works in the store next door, and he was going, yeah, we're probably going to be fine. There's not even a single confirmed case in the Maritimes. And then we got to work today, and he goes, there was a case in New Brunswick. That's literally next door.
oh crap.
I'm like, dude, Halifax has an international airport. We're going to get it. Like,
Yeah,
don't worry
I've flown
about it.
into that one. Yep.
I'm really interested to see how it affects the video game industry, just because, movies is going to get affected by this. Movie production's being shut down. Television production most likely going to be shut down. But I really think the industry that's going to make the most of this is free-to-play games, because you're going to have a bunch of people sitting at home, people who maybe don't want to spend money because they've been doomsday prepping themselves, or they just aren't making money because they don't have, their job isn't paying them, or they're just kind of saving and not using disposable income. But you can go and download a ton of free-to-play games. So I'm very curious to see, it's just like how Pornhub always says, like, their viewership goes way up during crisis times.
Yeah,
I'm really curious to see, like, how Fortnite, how PUBG, and how a lot of the other free-to-play games react, and also what they kind of do. I already saw Pokemon discounted in the sense that allows you to basically sit at home.
I was
going to
say that exact same thing. Yeah, their Pokemon Go is, people can't go outside, basically, right? It's interesting. Also, you mentioned Pornhub. Pornhub's handing out free premium subscriptions to help Italy fight the coronavirus. So
they're doing
good
a good
on
fight.
Pornhub. They're helping everybody. But this has affected the games industry. It started with GDC, and then kind of smaller events here and there. And there was worry at PAX East, by the way. If anybody went to PAX East, the next like 2 miles down the road, that hotel, which I know, I can almost guarantee you there were PAX East attendees at the hotel where there was a big outbreak. But the big news was, we'll start with E3, because that one got canceled.
E3 canceled. I mean, there's just a bunch of them. I mean, if we want to, we can just bang all these out and just talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it.
So obviously the big one is E3 2020 canceled. South by Southwest canceled. Minecraft Festival canceled. TwitchCon Europe canceled. I think that might be it for the big ones. I got them all open here.
And I'm sure there's more. I
mean, everything's getting canceled.
Then you have a lot of the gaming tournaments and championships, like some of the league stuff is canceled. The Call of Duty stuff is canceled and postponed. The NBA 2K stuff is canceled and postponed. There are a lot of, this is
StarCraft 2 GSL's playing in empty theaters.
Yeah. A lot of that'll all move online too, but even so is, just having been a huge fan of StarCraft 2 esports, online show matches are not always not online tournaments are not always the best solution because of lag and the players, some being in Korea, some being in North America, some being in Europe, the servers. It's just it's a temporary fix. But Darren Rovell was wrong when he was joking today that esports is going to stop, because we can still play online, and NBA can't do that. So
this really is esports moment right now, since everything else is kind of crashing. And for for guys like companies like yours, Power Spike, and then anybody who's involved in that space with streamers and esports, people are going to be sitting at home. A lot of folks over the next 2 weeks will be sitting at home and not going out if at all. And then they're going to be finding stuff to do, and gaming and esports that will still be happening. Competitions will be happening. I'm curious if ESPN starts airing stuff. To be honest,
on that kind of note, I think the games that have the most to gain from the sports being canceled are the sports games.
Yeah, that's
Madden,
true.
NHL, NBA, FIFA, and the reason why is because let's be honest, if you watch those sports, you probably buy the games, and those aren't really very popular esports. And the reason kind of is because they're just not top tier esports like your League of Legends. There's not a lot of money, and the money that's kind of put in them is put in by the publishers. There's advertisers, but the audiences aren't that quite there. I'm a huge fan of the NHL series. The NHL league has been trying to get more and more into esports, but their biggest problem is there's just not a lot of streamers for NHL 20. That said, it's a great game, but now that there's no hockey to watch and there is a incredible team mode in that game that is very much geared for esports, I think there's a real opportunity for them to take advantage of that, be it with players themselves from the leagues, getting them involved in it, to people who are fans of the sport, just sort of saying, well, you know what, I'm at home, I want to hang out with my communities, I want to talk to sports fans, and I'm going to play these games. League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Dota 2, all those games, they have massive audiences. They're going to keep growing. They're going to be fine. I think they have a lot to gain, but I really think it's the sports games who have a lot to gain from the fact that sports have been canceled. And if you want to do sports sort of stuff on the internet or do anything remotely close to sports ball, it's going to be the video games.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to be honest, it's a really good time for anybody who wants to break out some of the old, like the NCAA basketball games or NCAA football.
Oh my God.
Right now with the tournament canceled, that's something that could be very, very interesting to watch. But yeah, so the NBA has its league. The NFL has, Madden leagues out there. Like you said, the NHL is kind of starting.
The NHL they have a league too.
They have a league.
FIFA has a league.
This is terrific time for those companies. Instead of just kind of, I don't want to say tucking tail or anything, because it's definitely not that, but instead of shutting everything down, this is that investment time. They can push their kind of subsidiary leagues to do this, and it would be great. It would be great all around for both esports and for their regular teams.
The players themselves, from especially in the NBA and the NFL, they play these games. There's Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He loves NHL 20. He plays it all the time when they're on the road. He doesn't play it online because he's an NHL player. He's training. He's on the road nonstop. Now's a great time for I think you're going to see athletes. We've seen it before. They do it. Go on to Twitch. Go on to Mixer. Start streaming. Connect to fans and play against each other. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw NBA players.
Hang out with Ninja.
Playing in this. Hang out with Ninja or hang out with each other like LeBron James. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw LeBron James streaming in a couple of weeks' times, because why not? If you're not on the court playing, your personal brand is technically not on the court playing. Why not go online and play some NBA 2K with James Harden? Why not? So I think there's real opportunity for those games. Just esports in general, though, as we've been saying, have just a massive opportunity.
Do you think the organizations themselves will start doing events? Like, instead of it just being the players being like, yeah, I'm on Twitch, I'm streaming myself playing, the sport I play. Do you think it'll be like the NBA will be like, play, get a chance to play with, X player?
I think if they're smart, they will.
Yes, if they're smart, they will. Yeah.
The NBA has, the NBA is pretty closely involved with its league. The NBA 2K League has a draft that is similar to the NBA draft and is partnered with it, where they would have the owners of the NBA team be there. They actually had Nate Silver from the NBA commissioner at the NBA 2K League draft. They didn't name their teams like the DC Defenders. They're Wizards Gaming. The NHL, Ted Leonsis is the Capitals owner. He is the owner of the Capitals esports team as well. I know that he is very much interested in it. I think that these guys, they're smart enough to have gotten investment into esports and have kind of set it there. I think they've kind of had the issue of what do we do with it? How do we make these games a popular esport? Because something I think people kind of get wrong is they go, I made a game, it's an esport. And that's not necessarily how it works. It's the community says this is an awesome game. We want to play it. We want to support it. And then brands come and pour money into it because it's popular. And I think with sports games, they've had a problem with, they've got the money, they've got and they've got the professional teams behind it. They just don't have the eyeballs. Now there's a real opportunity for the NHL to go on Twitter and say, hey, Alex Ovechkin is streaming NHL 20 right now, or to literally do what you're saying is, hey, let's host an esports tournament around FIFA.
Yeah.
And let's invite a couple guys from the English Premier League to be in the tournament and the best FIFA players and see where it all susses out. So, I think it's really on it's on the leagues to embrace it, since they don't have an on the field product to do now.
Yep.
The moment is right now.
The moment is right now. I mean, this is, if there's ever a time, and it's something that we've always been kind of wondering when esports will really take off, and it's these types where, yeah, I mean, it just seems like the perfect situation. I guess. I hate saying that, but it seems like timing wise, it seems right about right. But
the sports world laughed, but esports is on top now. Let me tell you,
it's the only sport running. There are very few leagues around the world that are up and running right now, I think. So
speaking about being on top, this is the part where I gloat over last week's show. Last week, just to get you in the loop, because there was barely any news outside of coronavirus stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I made the rest of the guests on the show predict what they thought the impact on the games industry would be for coronavirus. My pick was that there would be a bunch of conferences coming to light in VR.
Yes.
This week, HTC is hosting its next developer conference in VR amid coronavirus concerns. Yep. 1 week, and I am vindicated. I am the prophet once again.
So let's. I definitely want to talk about this, because I've actually started getting some emails from companies who are hosting a full conference online. There were a lot of the GDC sessions are going to be appearing online. Microsoft announced a lot of that stuff, I think, next week or the week after. They're going to have all those online.
GDC is streaming a bunch of the
pre-filmed
developer videos.
Facebook, I think they're doing the same thing for Oculus. So this could, again, being technology-based, I think, showing off tech, showing off the developer side of things, showing off products through streams, it works totally fine. Nintendo's been doing it. Sony and Microsoft started doing it, and I think this is something that's going to be easy for them to kind of shift to. Of course, we've talked about going strictly digital. There are ups and downs to this, and that's why I definitely wanted to have Reed on, because Reed has been in the industry long enough. He's been around. My mouth is covered up by this microphone, by the way. I've been watching myself this whole. You've been around the industry for a while now, obviously, and you've let me angle this. You've been to E3. You've been involved with a lot of stuff with developers and media and things like that. And you were a blogger, and so E3 right now, we already knew it was going through this really weird transitional time, and people were, the industry seemed to be upset. Seemed is a light word. Media was upset. Publishers and developers were not really digging the direction, but I think some of them just kind of felt like they had to go anyways. You had Sony pull out. You had EA doing its own thing. Microsoft is across the street. And you've kind of seen this grow over the last few years as well. With this cancellation, how do you think that's gonna? First of all, how do you think that's gonna affect? Let me rephrase that. How do you feel about it getting canceled?
Well, I worked on E3 for 6.5 years. I think that people who follow the show pretty closely might remember the E3 Twitter account, and I was largely responsible for that in the digital media, as well as doing a lot of outreach to smaller and mid-sized blogs and influencers. And one of my goals was, one of my goals when I came to E3 6.5 years ago, I guess it must have been 7.5 years ago, was I used to be a blogger, and I really wanted to modernize who we were bringing to the show and how we were talking to fans. And I knew social media was the way to do it. So, that massive 2 million person account was my baby, and I loved working on it. And through that, I learned so much about what goes into making E3 and what its importance is. And something that I kind of saw over the past, I guess kind of, if we're going to, a good way to start is we can start about like kind of how I feel about, and I think that it's a lost moment, and it's a big hole in the gaming industry calendar. And I see a lot of people dancing on the grave of E3. And I think that's wrong.
Mhm.
And the reason why is because E3 was a tremendous moment for the video game industry. How you feel about the show and the direction it's taken, and maybe some of the missteps in the past few years, doesn't erase the fact that E3 brought the entire video game industry together. It created a moment where everybody was focused on video games all at the same time. And also, it was just exciting. I mean, I grew up reading about E3 and EGM when I was in grade school, and Jeff Keighley at that time was covering it for the first time ever. And, I had the luck to work with him on E3 for E3 Coliseum. And I remember talking to him about how E3 was just such a big part of my summer. It was almost like when summer started. When I got into the industry, I really noticed how much work went into E3, how much the industry revolved around it, and how much planning and had to go into it. And also, there's like a cottage industry for these events that pops up. And we'll get to that in a little bit here. But really, I think it's a tremendous lost opportunity. And it's going to be really hard to fill that void. And it's also going to be kind of hard to come back from it, too, because we've had a lot of technology changes that have made all conferences from CES to E3 to like the Detroit Auto Show in particular. People talk about relevancy and about how relevant these shows are, and that what it is. And what it means by that is that you have streaming, you have podcasting now, you have a social media has changed how we cover things. Basically, every attendee could be a journalist, so to speak, through social media. So these big events have kind of have a time limit on them in the way they were being done. And now E3 has kind of been forced into doing what I think people have been saying to do for a long time. And I've definitely heard it from people, which is, let's just go all digital. Let's not meet at a convention center. You guys put on a show, you stream it. We'll all just watch from home, or we'll all just watch and go to the JW and have a pint. That's sort of what people thought the future was going to be. And the reason they said that is because, well, the show floor is not relevant. The show's not relevant. And I always thought that was wrong for two reasons. The first is that it is relevant because that is the most talked about time of video games of the year. The people who are saying it is not relevant are the people who are benefiting the most from E3 because it is journalists and press who are writing about E3, who are getting site record hits for the year during that week, who are getting a massive amount of stories, be it from things they discovered on the show floor to people they bumped into, of things they overheard, or to things they just went to the conference, as well as that's really one of the only places you're going to get hands-on demos. You're not going to get a hands-on demo through a digital event. You're not going to get interviews, exclusive interviews offered out as easily because there's going to be so much more control. Also, there's no reason to do an exclusive interview when you can just do it on your own company blog, or you can do it on their social media. So you really lose a considerable amount of access to the video game industry by not having E3. And I think that speaks to how relevant the show really was, because that access was what really powered a lot of the hype and discussions about the industry over the summer. That's not all going to go away because E3 is gone. But I think that, and I challenged kind of people on Twitter, I said, if you really think E3 is not that relevant, show me your stats for E3 2019, your website stats, your uniques, and then show me your 2020 stats after this summer, and then tell me the show's not relevant. Because I guarantee you, some sites, the big sites will be fine. They'll cut exclusive deals, they'll get interviews. The middle guys, the guys, I think even like the Polygons of the world, they're going to feel it. They're going to feel it, and some of those guys, and I'm not trying to call out journalists and be mean to them, but some of them have said like, the show needs to go away. I'm happy it's dying out. Well, they're not going to be so happy when they're not getting the hits, and then that's not justifying some of the ad buys, or it's just not bringing the audience in that they thought it was, because they just don't have the big moment. The second part is that E3 has this cottage industry around it. E3 brings millions of dollars to the city of Los Angeles. Now, the city of Los Angeles doesn't necessarily need E3 to bring millions of dollars to it. But when you think about events like South by Southwest, CES, or just about any trade show, they employ unions. They employ all sorts of people who are temporary workers. They have the hotel industry is certainly reliant on those shows filling the amount of hotel rooms. Uber drivers, taxis, local restaurants are looking for that business to come in. Everything around that show benefits from that show being there. And that also speaks to the power of your industry. If you can bring millions of dollars to a city, that demonstrates just how important your industry is. And that's something the video game industry did exceptionally well with E3. So all of that is just kind of lost, and it's a big hole to fill. And I think that dancing on the grave of E3 is a little wrong, because you're basically dancing on a lot of people losing out on jobs, and you're also losing out on a lot of opportunities to talk about your industry and get all the things I've kind of mentioned there. So sort of that's how I mean, I agree E3 needs some serious changes. There's been a lot of negativity. There's been some serious missteps in the planning of it and where the direction of it was going. But that doesn't mean that the show was lost or too far gone. It still has a chance. Now that it's not there, I think publishers are going to look at this and say, well, how much money are we saving by not doing this?
Right.
Can we really survive without E3? I think what you're going to find out is some publishers are going to say, yes, we can survive without E3. It doesn't matter. We did everything we wanted to, and we were comfortable with it. And some are going to say, man, we really want it. So I'm really curious to see what happens that week of June and how people try to replace it, and then whether or not it even has nearly the effect. And then the week after, if people feel fulfilled by it and if they liked it or not.
It's interesting, and you touched on a lot of the same points that I think a lot of us, maybe some of us who are longer veterans of E3 or not, like you, I grew up reading about E3 in magazines and EGM and Nintendo Power, and then finally had the chance to go about 11 years ago for the first time. Loved it, and I had gone almost every single year. I think I missed only a couple times, and this year I would have been going back. But E3 is the biggest time of year for us at SideQuesting for views. It's, hands down, it's usually E3 and then the week, potentially PAX East week or whatever. And a big reason of that for us is twofold. One, it's obviously getting the content, seeing the cool products out there and reporting on those. Two is, you mentioned some of the cottage industry. For us, we're SideQuesting is known as the party list. One of the things we're known for is a party list website. We put a lot of party lists together for E3 and PAX and everything. And the party list drives thousands and thousands of views per day, and in the lead up to E3, and that's a big chunk of our summer readership. Is that first month, that towards the end of May and beginning of June, and a lot of those readers end up, they visit the site for information, and then they stick around through, at least through the first part of summer, until they get into vacations, things like that, and back to school and stuff. But our numbers typically stay a lot higher in the summer because folks are coming to our site for that. That's as a readership hit. That's how it affects us. But then also from the part that I think is maybe even more so, is you look at a site like SideQuesting. I created SideQuesting, it's known. I created SideQuesting so I could go to E3. That was the whole point. I wanted to go to E3. I created a website and I registered it with a business tax ID within like 2 weeks, and then I got my E3 approval, and we had maybe like, we were averaging like 20 views a day, but back then blogging was fine. So, you get 100 views a month, you're kind of in E3. And so we went, and the connections we made there, the folks that we met just through some of these parties, you bump into someone on the show floor. You, as industry folks, as media, those first few E3s, we weren't getting access to the big games, right? Nintendo wouldn't look at us. Sony, EA, none of those was look at us. But then you had smaller companies that would. I think I remember one of the first games that I got from a review after E3 was like My Baby 3 on the DS or something like that, and because I just so happened to see the game there and talk to the PR person that was there. I've now known that PR person for a long time. They work with us to get us any information and any interviews and things that we need, and we've been on their PR lists, and we constantly get first access because we've been, our communication has been so well, and we've been, forthcoming with them and so on. So those connections that you make, and this just from the media side, I know for a fact from the business side, I've seen connections happen at the lobby of the, in the Fig, at the pool at the Fig, which was the famous, after hour spot. You'd hang out at the pool at the Fig area, and then you would just be having drinks, and there's, Yoshida or what, there's somebody from Sony over here. There's somebody from EA over here. There's a small developer over here, and then the three of them just sort of bump into each other, and they start talking, and they talk about engines, and they talk about game engines and graphics, and next thing you know, they're handing cards to each other. And I've seen stuff like that happen, and that to me is that sort of IRL stuff, the in real life stuff to me is what E3 was really good for.
Well, there's that.
Yeah,
there's that. But I mean, you mentioned media connections, writers and PR. What about writers and writers?
Writers and writers, exactly.
Like E3 is the only maybe event, at least in North America, that usually has some sort of a writers' room.
Yeah, PAX does as well, and a few of the other conferences do as well. But E3 that's the tried and true writers' room where there's there's something like 2 or 3 rooms at E3 that you can sit and
we had 2 press rooms. We had a main press room you could work in, and we had one that was chill with like couches and sometimes like a catered lunch and all that.
Yeah.
The work one was the one you wanted to be in, though.
You get the better Wi-Fi.
Yes. A whole bunch of people cracking there. Plugged into the internet. Everybody's got a little Chromebook open. Everybody's yelling at each other while they're writing stories for their own sites.
Sam and I, when we went a couple years ago, I think it was now, we didn't get into the Sony press conference. This is the year that Sony's last year doing the press conference at E3 when they really scaled back and did all that weird stuff. So we ended up going to the movie theater right next to the convention center, and we watched the Sony press conference from there, and it was better kind of than I was reading the Twitter reactions from folks that, friends of ours that were saying, I think Tom or whoever else was there, were saying, what are we even doing here? Why are we, this is nonsense. I don't have any place to walk. I'm not having a good time. I'm not enjoying this press conference. They're making us get up and move. Sam and I were having, I think we had popcorn and like an ice.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like weirdly a blast. And also their stream was like bad. So everything just looked like it was smeared in Vaseline.
That was incredible because the online reaction almost to a person when they were like showing that, but without sound was just, what the fuck are we looking at?
But
nobody knew what was going on.
Wasn't that the one where they had, like experiences, and they were going to move the press through them. And this was Sony, and I can tell you this because I remember this from when I was at ESA working on E3. This was when Sony was starting to say like, "Hey, we're getting cold feet about E3, and it costs a lot, and they maybe weren't as confident in the show format anymore. They wanted to try something new."
Tell people to get a second job to buy our thing.
And so they had this idea of like, well, we're going to do experiences rather than the sit press conference. And I remember very distinctly, I was covering it for the E3 social media accounts with Melanie, who was the graphic who did the new logo. The two of us did social together for the last 2 years. And they said like, "Hey, welcome to Sony Presser. We've got 4 experiences we're going to show you today, and you're going to walk through them all." They only showed 2 because I think the first one had so many bad technical difficulties. And that guy playing like the wood, and it was like Sekiro was going to get shut off.
The shakuhachi.
They had the guy playing the little flute thing, and people are like, "Why is he playing the flute for 5 minutes? Show us the effing game." And then suddenly they went to the next experience room, and they didn't use the other 2. I still contest to this day, somewhere in Los Angeles, those experience rooms are empty and waiting for people to walk into them. And I also think, I guarantee you, I think that is what moment was the reason Sony said, we're not doing E3 anymore.
I think my favorite part, I'll give it to Sony. They catch a lot of shit for doing things like that people just aren't into. But I think that unintentionally generated my favorite thing that's ever happened online was everybody going, "Why is there a white guy playing that Japanese flute? I can't believe cultural appropriation." And then it turns out that he's one of like 5 people in the world that is a master of the instrument.
Yeah, I think that also was when they were just like, we tried so hard to appease it. I remember like EA brought Pele on stage once for one of their things, and Pele talked about like the joy of soccer, and people are like, "Why are you talking about? Just show us."
That was amazing.
Yep, I remember that too.
I remember that so
that dude was just so happy.
It was interesting to see what. Well, let me say this. yes, coronavirus is canceling everything, and if the ESA
Bud Light virus. Let's get that Corona
Bud
money.
Light. If the ESA didn't cancel it, I think the LA, the city of LA,
The city would have.
the city would have. But with sort of the bad press, the bad vibes, people pulling out left and right from E3 this year, the publishers and developers, and I am 8-bit, who are the creative side of things. There's a lot of disagreements from what I had been hearing from folks. Jeff Keighley,
Jeff pulled out.
everybody was pulling out. And the word before the coronavirus stuff even hit, the word was, is E3 even going to happen this year, with everybody pulling out? And then I hate to say it this way because it just sounds so horrible, but it's almost like the coronavirus, and God forbid anything bad happens to anybody, the coronavirus coming in kind of gave E3 an out to say, okay, we've got to just pull the plug on this and really reboot this thing next year. And this was the sign from God to say we've got to just put a halt to it.
It did, and I think that if you go back as far as like May 2019, articles started coming about a lot of turmoil at E3, a lot of turmoil, and with an ESA, there was a lot of turnover. I'll tell you right now, every single person that I worked with on E3 is not there anymore. So they don't have those people that are guiding the show anymore. So you have a pretty inexperienced team running it. And I think that is cause, Sony almost directly said it in their pullout, was we just don't agree with the leadership and the direction and the vision of the show. And I think that it sort of might have been a merciful thing to happen to the show, to not have to have had such an awkward year, because I fear that by not having the show, the worry is it'll be harder to bring people back in as they realize the financial investment maybe wasn't worth it, or they were able to find other ways to do it. But I think if you have a really bad show as opposed to no show at all, then is that even worse? Because now there's no confidence in your ability to make that show. So I'm really hoping that, I'll say this, I love E3. I grew up with it. I worked on it. That Twitter account was my baby. It's like was my favorite thing in the world to build and create for the show. I love the fact that I got to leave my own little physical mark on E3. I would hate to see E3 die. I really don't want it to die. I really want it to get back to being a place where it is, but it needs to be brought. It needs to take this year to seriously consider, what do ESA members want? What does the video game industry want? What do game publishers who are not major publishers like Sony, Activision, EA, Ubisoft, or Microsoft, what do they want? And then further is, how do you make this show something that the industry is really excited about, but also embraces all the changes with the industry? We've seen Fortnite have events inside of Fortnite. We've seen VR events like you're talking about with HTC doing that. There's so much technology. It would be a crime to not use all of that technology in a show like E3. But at the same time, some people know this, but they don't, is ESA and E3, that revenue from selling booths, selling the show floor, selling ads, selling the banner on the front of the LACC, that's money that goes to that company, then that association, to fund them and fund the people they work for and the things they do. So it's a really hard balancing act, because you simply can't just get rid of the show floor, because it does serve a purpose for the association. But at the same time, the show floor is the thing that's been questioned for a couple of years now. And to modernize it to something more digital would take away a lot of opportunity to create revenue for your association and employ people and do the things you need to do. So it's in this really hard spot. And I think that, I am 8-bit. They're awesome. They probably had some amazing ideas for it, but I think they probably couldn't reconcile that they had ideas that were much more modern, and ESA and E3 wanted to keep things very similar to how it's always been, because that's how they make money. I think Jeff Keighley had the same issue. I don't want to speak for Jeff, but he did E3 Coliseum, and I know that E3 Coliseum was something that he was very excited about, because it was a little bit like mini Comic-Con at E3, and I was very excited to work on that with him and help him out with promoting it, because I knew that what that was designed to do was to get fans off the show floor to come see some cool stuff, spread out the crowds, and create another element that you would watch. Biggest problem with E3 is over Tuesday morning. And the reason I say that is the press conferences end, you and me at home, anyone it's over because you can't go on the show floor. You could watch show floor streams, but E3 Coliseum created a reason to keep watching E3 throughout the week. And that was really, really smart. And so I don't know what happened there, and I'm not going to try to guess what happened there, but I feel like that's sort of there must have been a lot of creative differences. And I think that they really, if E3 is to be successful and to come back stronger, they need to, coronavirus helped a ton, unfortunately. But
yeah.
it's better to take the year off and fix it and get it right than it is to do it poorly after a year of just downright negative news. Because I feel like that would have been even harder to recover from.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see where it goes. I really want it to recover. I know a lot of great people who work on over there. I would hate to see E3 have to downsize or ESA have to downsize because they can't pay these people anymore because the show isn't there. But at the same time, there is a reality that has to be faced, which is that sort of convention is a dinosaur. And it is time to modernize it, and it's time to find the ways to do it. And I think that's where Jeff Keighley and I am 8-Bit had a lot of great ideas. And I have to think that they could not reconcile that vision they had with the vision of what E3 has always been, and just sort of the idea of this is what we do it every year. We can't change. We have to do this.
It feels like remember when E3 went to the hotel conference room mode for that one or 2 years, whenever it was, and they really downsized and they pulled media. Most of the media pulled out of there. A lot of the smaller devs went out of there, and they really kind of became this really tiny show. And then I remember the following year they opened it back up. I think that was 2009. That was my first year.
Yep. The Santa Monica show.
Yeah. It was massive. It was massive. They opened it back up at the LACC. They had that was the year Activision had that concert, or maybe that was the year after that. I can't remember. But they had so many things happening, and E3 felt big again at that time.
There was when I came into E3, there was an email that my former boss Rich Taylor, who used to run the show and was in charge of that rebirth of E3, and the email they'd sent out to all the members it said the bitch is back. And it was what they meant was we're going big again for E3. And it was a concerted effort because that Santa Monica show, there's a lot of people on the show management side that wax sentimental about it because they got to take meetings by the pool, and they loved that because it was a little bit like a vacation. Sure. But I always told them that's not E3, and that's not what gamers expect, and that's not what gamers want, and that's not what the publishers want, because they want these big moments. And so they rightly wanted to go back. Another big part of that was the Great Recession. The recession of 09, 08 happened. That was a financial reason. A lot of these companies were not comfortable spending a crap ton of money on a booth, but it recovered. And so the show was able to recover. And so, I think that the biggest change that happened to E3 since then was letting the fans in. And I think that's when you saw the gamer. I think that maybe was not a lot of people blame that decision. I don't think it was the worst because people are acting like they let in 50,000 fans. It was only 10,000 fans. But it was enough of an issue that people started to bring things I remember this distinctly. Sony was doing their meetings in the JW second and third floors because they had set up all their demos there for press. They were not actually sending press onto the show floor anymore to do their press interviews. Yeah. They said, come to the JW. And the reason they did that is that they wanted to make it easier for press and for everyone they wanted to talk to and business investors to get to what they wanted to, because they didn't want them fighting with the fans on the floor. But even then, it was only about 10,000 fans. So I think that maybe that was a little bit of an overreaction by some people who said, well, fans ruined it. But there is something to be said about when you let fans in and it was something you could purchase a ticket to, it took away that special thing about this is the industry's event. And this is what the industry comes together to do. And this is where we network and celebrate. And we'll see you guys at PAX, and we'll see you guys at SDCC and Gamescom, in particular Gamescom. I also think there's a lot of fear about would E3 become Gamescom, which I would tell you I would absolutely not want to happen. Gamescom is a great show. It also is terrifying when I see the groups of people in those hallways, and I just go, that's not really what E3 is all about. Especially given that E3 is such a watched show with press conferences. It kind of separated. Was the press conferences for the fans and the show was for the industry. And I think when those lines got blurred, people got a little bit of cold feet. And I think it started to create some of the problems you saw pop up over the last 2 to 3 years.
Right. Yeah, and we've had conversations just with the SideQuesting team about how, what would we do to modernize E3? Well, it's the fans letting the fans in. That's the problem. Well, it's like, well, that's that's maybe a problem in some ways, but at the same time, that's also, for some respect, it's for the publishers that want to get stuff out to the fans. EA is doing the EA Play, which seems to actually be pretty good for them. I mean, they're the times that I'd gone to EA Play, I mean, it was packed. Fans were everywhere, and they were building some hype with some of the games that they were ready to show. And then at the same time, I'm not one of the diehard E3 old school guys, but because I haven't been going that long. But I did like having I did like being able to go to a booth and knowing that there's either media or there's industry. And if you're, and a little selfishness, if you're industry, you're going to be in this line because there's so many buyers, there's so many GameStop managers, folks that are looking to plan out their year for selling things, and then there's selling games, and then on the other side there's the actual press, and they would let us go in sometimes first, sometimes at the same time, to let us go and try the products. We could do the write-ups, and those write-ups and the interviews actually would influence some of these buyers as well. And so there was this balance, I think, and the balance seemed to be pretty good.
Well, here's the nice part for going to like a physical event like E3 versus a digital event. Physical event, you're a writer, you're watching a demo, they finish the demo. The guy who's presenting it knows the demo inside and out because it's just a chunk of the game that they've got somewhat presentable, and he's got a list of answers for what probably the most expected questions are going to be. And you fire off your questions, and he's got your answers, and you write them down, and turn out a news story. Digital, they show a video on Twitch and go, "All right, Twitch chat, anybody got questions?" And then you see dog faces.
Yeah.
And slurs.
Well, I think that one of the things is that, and people kind of started to call it out, was that you had EA doing EA Play. They kind of broke away from E3 entirely, but they actually happened to do their thing during E3. E3 became a week. It wasn't just the show. And I think publishers started to say, we can take advantage of this by having our event in Los Angeles, maybe across the street in Hollywood a little way, a pretty expensive Uber ride over there, but worth it to them. And they wanted fans at that sort of event. But then you had companies like Sony and Nintendo who didn't want fans at these events and said, hey, look, we really like having the business side. We really just want that. And I think that clash is where you saw things come ahead. And I think that you can fault the leadership or E3's leadership for decisions there, but also that's a clash of companies having very different ideas of what they want to do and having to reconcile the idea of, well, we're all going to do the same show anyway, right? Well, eventually they're going to diverge because things are different. I think the Nintendo Direct was not the beginning of the end, but I think it was the beginning of the evolution. And I think that's when we should have taken note that this is where it's going to go, because I remember saying, I think the Nintendo Direct is going to do okay, but it's going to get better each year. And that's exactly what happened, because Nintendo at first had the Nintendo Direct be very much just like a press conference taped, and then it turned into an event where you had like the Reggie puppet dancing and singing with Iwata. And, you also look back at sort of the history of E3 with some of these companies. Nintendo during the Wii Music press conference was a disaster.
Oh my goodness.
It was a disaster. It was an unmitigated disaster. And in order to prevent that from happening again, especially for a company like Nintendo that takes chances, wants to go for family, doesn't want to have an ultra violent trailer, and maybe doesn't even want to go super big on a stage show like that, and still wants to maybe talk sales numbers like we used to 10 years ago, doing a direct gave them the ability to do it in a quick and concise format where they could just do it, get in and out, and not have people boo or in real time tweet, who the hell is Robbie Drums? And so, I mean, I think that, people who have been covering this industry a long time, I don't think they've really given as hard a look at the history of E3 and what each company was doing to really see where people started to branch and say, I want to do something different. I can almost pinpoint exact moments just from having worked on the show and being so familiar with it. But it's Nintendo and Sony. Both of them had press conferences that were mocked. Like some of, I don't want to say the worst press conferences ever, but let's be honest, they were probably some of the worst ever. And those moments definitely influenced how they wanted to handle this show. Meanwhile, you've got Microsoft. They love the press conference. They love that. They have their own theater for it. They go big for it. And now they're pushing those companies to either have to do it or do something like them. And I don't think they wanted to be pushed that way. I don't think they wanted to have to compete that way. They wanted to compete in November when it mattered, not in June when it was just a bunch of trailers and vertical slices. And so, if a journalist was listening to this and wanted to say, well, what was really the moments that really defined what changed E3 and what led to its either decline or its inability to evolve, I think you'll see that the biggest companies involved in it, they all fractured and had very different ideas about what E3 should be, and they just went and did them. And it created this sort of atmosphere of like, do we bring fans or not? I guess we have to bring the fans. And then you bring the fans, and it's like, well, now we're going to take our stuff across the street to the JW because you'd have brought fans. And then EA is saying, great, you brought even more fans. Bring them to EA Play. That's like a yin and yang. That's really hard to balance. And I think that's one of the things is that the ability to create a E3 that was focused for what the industry wanted, it became almost impossibly hard because what each company wanted changed drastically because of what they had done in previous years, and they wanted to avoid those things. Ubisoft in particular, Mr. Caffeine. Aisha Tyler was brought in. She did it 3 years in a row. They found a formula that worked, and they stuck with it. And they still do a presser, but I still remember is that was back when they were trying to compete with Microsoft in the press conference world. These days, Ubisoft doesn't try to compete with Microsoft in the arms race of press conference. They come out and they say, we're Ubisoft, this is who we are, and this is what we make. And you know what? They have one of my favorite pressers because they just kind of say, this is our presser and we're doing our thing.
Yeah. The great thing, though, is like, Ubisoft, especially with Aisha Tyler, they have a great press conference. But we're still talking about Mr. Caffeine. Like,
exactly.
like straight up, like, that was what, 2008?
That was like 2007. It had to be 2008, or it wasn't. It couldn't have been because I was in Santa Monica. I think it was 09.
It was 09.
It was the bitches back because that's when the
2011.
The E3 arms race was definitely back in full force in 2009 to 2012, and I came in around 2012, and that's when I think companies really started to say like, we're going to play the arms race, but I don't think this even fits what our company culture wants to do in terms of how we promote games anymore. So, and like you said, we're still talking about Mr. Caffeine. Yeah. I clearly remember the woman who was the head of not the head of marketing, but she came out. Remember, we all thought we were going to get a press conference with Reggie for the week. And then we got Sean White and her talking about her snowboarding trip to Park City with her family.
Yeah.
And I remember writing a blog. I was in college then about like what a disaster that was because they completely misinterpreted that the people who watched E3 were gamers, not moms. But that's what they wanted to do. And E3 wasn't the avenue to do it. And so they needed a show for that. And E3 wasn't that show.
It's E3 is it's still the big show, and they've come out and they said that they're going to try to work with the different publishers and developers and so on to try to put on maybe some digital content during that week. And I think you mentioned E3 ended Tuesday morning. Nintendo's press conference is done. It's over. It sort of changed 2, 3, 4 years ago with Twitch and YouTube when you could actually watch some of the streams. And I actually remember being in the press room when I'd come back from a couple meetings or something, and I'd be sitting there writing and updating, doing transcribing an interview, and I'd have the Twitch stream up from whether it's IGN or it's Capcom's or Sony or someone, just have the Twitch stream up and listening to that while I'm typing up something else and getting putting more information on there. So I think there was something to this idea of there's always content and always these little channels you can flip around, and it sort of sounds like they maybe want to do something like that at least for this year.
Mm-hmm. I think that you're gonna. Well, one thing, and I kind of said on Twitter about how the industry has rallied around E3 canceling. I think a lot of people who especially on the development and publishing and community, basically on the people who make video games side, when it got canceled, they just realized how big a show, how big a hole, and how relevant that show was to them. I think the press are starting to realize that. Some are a little snarky about it still. I think they're going to realize it on Monday or on Sunday when there's no Bethesda press conference to cover, or it's only a short hour-long thing and there's no interviews afterwards, there's no party afterwards, there's no hands-on demos afterwards, there's no interviews afterwards, that they're going to go, wow, we have a huge coverage hole. You'll still cover games, but now all you have is a trailer to cover. You don't have any of that other stuff. But I think that what I've seen is the industry starting to rally and say, well, hey, let's make a showcase that we can do. Greg Miller did it with Kind of Funny. He's kind of been doing it for the smaller guys, which I think is a fantastic idea. I actually think there's a room for him to step in and just take this and run with it. I think that I think that maybe there's maybe 3 companies I think that could do what I call Tesla, which is when they launched the Cybertruck, they just had they said, come to our campus. Yep. We're going to show you something. We're not going to tell you what it is. It's a big surprise. We're going to fly you out. We're going to pay for like travel. We're going to eat food. We're going to wine dine you. We're going to make it. Basically, Tesla had a mini E3 just for the Cybertruck. And then they announced
smash this window with a baseball.
Yeah, and then they're going to smash the window. But you know what? It was effective. It was a very effective show because it got headlines everywhere. It was on CNN. It was on mainstream media. And I think that Microsoft could do that. I think that Sony could do that. I think Nintendo could, but doesn't want to do that. No. I think Electronic Arts could do it. I don't think Activision could, but I could be wrong. But that's just Activision kind of is built around 3 or 4 games only, and EA is built around entire sports franchises and then their games. But I think a lot of people have said, well, every company will just do their own physical event. That's not going to happen. Only a few companies can do that. A lot of these other companies, like even Capcom, who have been around the industry forever, they're not big enough to just have their own physical event. So now there's a void, and I've seen people say, like, let's do an event or let's have a digital thing. I think you're going to see a lot of streams, a lot of showcases, a lot of pre-made recorded shows, a lot of things maybe done with influencers. Like I almost feel like Microsoft is probably already getting Ninja to do the Halo Infinite reveal, and he'll be the one playing the demo on the stage, or not on the stage, but in whatever it is they do. But I really think that's what they're going to do to make up for it. I think that this is going to be the litmus test. Everyone's been saying for years, this is what you should do. Every company should just have their own event. Everyone should just do it. I think we're going to really see companies try the digital only, and maybe I kind of feel like Microsoft will still do something physical because they know the value of it. Also, it's a console year.
It really is. It's hugely important.
This is what I think is the part of the story people haven't talked about as much. And it's because we haven't seen much from these consoles yet. But it's that this is a console year. And E3 is where you show off a console. You don't always launch your console or announce it at E3. And the reason why is because you want that buzz coming into E3. Sony did that with the PS4. Microsoft did it with the Xbox One. They didn't debut it at E3. They were shown off a month ahead or 2 months ahead. And then there was excitement because you wanted to see these consoles.
Nintendo even did it with, the 3DS and the Wii U. Those years,
right.
They said, "Hey, we're bringing new consoles in," but they still let people know. It's not like you drop it then and I was surprised. Yeah.
And so I think what we're going to see is potentially, I almost guarantee Xbox will do a physical Xbox, whatever they're calling it, Series X, whatever the hell its naming convention is going to be. Guarantee we're going to see a PS5 physical event. Guarantee we might see a physical event from Nintendo down the road for something else they do. I still feel like they just like doing the direct because it's very economical to them. But these physical events aren't going to go away. But what's really lost is that you can't have that physical event and bank on E3 being there to show it off and put your hands on it, touch the controller, play the launch games, talk to Mark Cerny about NAC.
There's a reason why Apple and Samsung thrive on these physical events because the commentary coming out of them isn't just like, here are the bullet points, this is what the next iPhone is. It's the iPhone, the back is glass and it feels weighty and it has this really nice sheen to it. And you can't get that from just seeing a video on a screen.
Tesla with the Cybertruck, I think, really did it well. The iPhone events always do it really well. Tesla, when I remember, was because they let people ride in the Tesla truck. They let some people drive it, and people are like, this is what it feels like to drive it, but we weren't allowed to video it. But we were allowed to drive it and tell you on social media. It creates that mystique. It gets people interested.
They did that as well with the, I think it was the debut of the Model 3. They even, because they showed the Model 3, and then I think at the same time they showed that new the Roadster, the second Roadster. They said, oh, by the way, we're bringing another car out. We have a Roadster, and they let people drive that Roadster.
Yeah.
And Tesla controlled all the video that came out of there. And it was really Elon and his marketing team know how to kind of control the story coming out of events,
And that's a good word, is because that's a big thing now in tech, is control. Because in the past, I remember one of the controversies would be PS4 has been announced. They're showing resistance on it on the show floor, and then someone cracks opens the box and sees a PC there, and they go, "Wait a second, that's not the PS4 running that system." Yeah. And now suddenly the jig is up. It's a dev kit, or it's actually a PC, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's not the PS4." That sort of thing is embarrassing. They hate that. They don't want that. Having E3 is where that mishap happens. Having your own physical event where you can control that means you don't have to do that. But getting kind of back to it is that you can't, they're not going to be able to announce PS5 and then know that they can bring the press to the event 3 months later to try out the system and have a lot written about it. Now they're going to announce it, say, here's the cool controller, probably have a physical event, maybe only let a few people try it or do kind of what Tesla did. And then you're going to have E3 week, and it's just trailers of these brand new systems. And I think what really sells systems is when you have journalists and influencers and podcasters and media people like you go there and put their hands on it and say, this is real. And this is for real.
I think what's kind of interesting, and going back to the idea of control and controlling your story, part of the problem, I don't want to say problem, but part of the known situation with E3 was always there's so much information coming out, and you're putting out a product. My Baby 3 got lost in the press releases next to whatever, I think Skyward Sword or whatever game came out that year. So good luck trying to a lot of times get that information.
It was hard to break through.
It was very hard to break through. Without, I'm curious this year if if things are timed out correctly or whatever, because you used to get information dumps during the press conference and that was it, right? You got a press conference and you would get hands-on time and interviews and stuff throughout the rest of that week here and there, but people always look for the press conferences first and then the big information that came out of the press conference. I think now the publishers and developers can sort of control, they can time, if they, let's say, Microsoft does a mini press event about the Xbox Series. There's a press event about the Xbox Series X. It says, here, check it out. Here's the Series X. Here's a few of the games that we're going to have on there. Day one, we're going to only talk about the Series X. Day two, we're going to talk about Halo Infinite in depth. Day three, we're going to talk about the next Gears game or whatever. Day four, we're going to do boom, boom, boom. These two games are going to debut. They can sort of time and control and pace themselves, because one of the most effective things isn't always getting all the information out at once. It can be this sort of delayed release, and Nintendo does that really well, because right now there's a rumor of 2 directs coming. There's one coming next week, supposedly an indie one, and then the week after that for the rest of their slate for the year. And they're doing these events, back to back. Today they showed off the Lego Mario thing, right? So they've now done things they're going to have done things 3 weeks in a row. All this stuff would have been in a direct potentially, or one showcase at E3, and had maybe 30 seconds at most on it, and then the next thing is the next Star Fox racing game or whatever. And then this lets these publishers potentially control the story a little bit, at least from their standpoint, getting data out and getting conversations around a product, a little bit more breathing room between, depending on when all this stuff goes down, of course, because they said we're still working with publishers and developers and so on. Is it all going to take place in 1 week? Is it going to take place over the month of June or May? We don't know. We don't know what that's going to look like.
Well, I think you hit on something there, is the fact that you have so many great products, but in E3 as a show, you have basically 2 days. Yeah. Really 1 day, which is the press conference day. And I think that one of the frustrations with the E3 format was that I know that it was a fight to get your press conference first. And that one of the big coups of the press conference wars was Microsoft. When Bethesda joined, we put them on Sunday night, but then everyone has said, well, wait a second. Sunday's a press conference day now? I want Sunday morning. And so suddenly Microsoft got Sunday morning, and Sony still has Monday night. That is a long time to react, but it also is a little dangerous. And the reason why is because I think Microsoft learned this lesson. Maybe not like a lesson, but they kind of ran this. Is they had a really great presser on a Sunday morning, and the only other presser that night was Bethesda's. And they were like, here's the cool games we've got. They didn't have, I think they had like Forza Horizon 4 was announced. It's one of their big showcase games, Gears. But, those are games we all knew were going to kind of come. Those are games people expected. Then Bethesda comes out and they're like, well, we're working on, the new Scrolls game. And people go nuts. And the next thing that happens is it's gone. Your moment just went away. Yeah. It vanished because someone else just announced something even bigger and you can't respond. It's like being a boxer, but you got punched in the face, but you don't get to punch back. And then now you're hoping that your announcement is going to, your announcement's going to survive overnight, then survive Ubisoft's press conference, and then go right into Sony's. And I remember the year that Sony announced, they announced The Last Guardian, which no one saw coming. And they also announced the Shenmue fan fundraising thing. And what I remember about those was that was the Sony press conference that there weren't any dates attached to the game. And the reason that I think and this goes back to why I think they left, was because they got into that arms race and they didn't want to get into that arms race, but they knew Microsoft's going to come out. They're going to come out on Sunday morning and they're going to blow it away. And then Bethesda's going to come and, we benefit from Bethesda because their games are on our systems too. But still, everyone's going to talk about Microsoft for an entire day and a half until we get to show things off. We better have something that makes you forget all about those guys. So I remember they showed off I think it was the motorcycle game that was okay. Didn't really do that great. It was the zombie motorcycle game.
Days Gone.
Days Gone. They had like 6 just killer trailers with no dates. And I remember that distinctly because I was like, that is the E3 arms race. And also one of the flaws, they felt like we had better announce some stuff that's going to kill it. And then you say, oh my God, that's awesome. Where is it on the show floor? It's not there. Or it's just a video of what you just saw in the trailer. And that created that false thing of like, well, why didn't you just show the trailer online? Why did you, people, I remember that Sony took a little crap for that because it went from like this euphoria of all these awesome games, Shenmue, The Last Guardian, Days Gone looks so cool, to, well, we're on Sony's booth and we're playing Spider-Man, but there's not a whole lot else here. And I'm a little surprised, like, why did they show that? And it's because they didn't attach dates. And I think that arms race really is something E3 forces. And I think it's something the publishers don't want to do anymore because they want to show, Microsoft in particular does this, they say before every show, you'll play all these games at the end of the year. Unless they get delayed, you'll play every single one of these games by the end of the year. And it's smart because they know that gamers don't buy the, hey, this game's coming out in 3 years stuff anymore. Because they know that it's kind of, it's like, that's definitely a vertical slice.
It's every year that we saw the Final Fantasy VII remake at E3.
I think the worst. I think the part where it really snapped into focus was Bethesda. 2 years ago when they showed Starfield and then they capped it with a picture of the Elder Scrolls 6 logo with no dates and you couldn't see them and they were like, well, they're not coming out this year. And it's like, well, then why the fuck are you showing them to me?
I remember talking to Pete Hines because he's in the DC area and that. And I remember one time just getting I think it was E3, just getting a chance to just kind of shoot shit with him. He's a super nice guy, huge Caps fan, awesome. Just like me. I love Pete and the Bethesda team. And I remember saying to him, like, oh, I can't wait to see what guys you're working on. I have an idea of what it is. And he's like, what do you think? And I was like, oh, he thinks and I had this feeling that he was like, I hate being told what we're working on because we are a company, because it was Rage 2 was their big game. Rage 2 was the big game that they were debuting. They had Andrew WK come out and play.
I remember,
And I remember they were super hyped about Rage 2 because they knew, like, hey, we're bringing this franchise back and we're going to make a run at it. And all anybody wanted to talk about to him was the Elder Scrolls. And that pisses them off because, like, think about it. You got an entire team working on a brand new game, trying to revitalize that series. It looked really cool. It was flashy, had great visuals. It was playable. It was something you could put your hands on and play. They had demos immediately after. They had the Bethesda party after that. And yet everyone's just like, where's Elder Scrolls? And I think that's something they didn't like. And I think that's something that really hurts E3 is that fans started to create this expectation of where are the things we want as opposed to what are we working on that we are proud to show you. And by having your direct, you can just say, hey guys, we're having a direct about a brand new franchise coming out from X. Nintendo does this all the time. Hey, we're having an indie direct. They don't say anything else. Now it's set the expectations. Now it's said, no, we're not talking about Animal Crossing. No, it's not a new Zelda. Don't give us that crap anymore. It's indies. And then you show up and you go, well, I guess they're not going to announce any of that stuff. And they show cool indies, and then they go, oh, okay, we're going to talk about Animal Crossing. Then they can size you again.
Yep.
But I think that's a big benefit of the taped event, and why people are going to is because E3 forced them to talk about products they weren't even working on.
Yeah.
Because fans only wanted to talk about those things. And I just remember asking Pete, I was like, oh yeah, I really can't wait to see what you're working on. And I just kind of was like, oh, but I have a feeling I know what it is. He's like, do you? And I realized then, I was like, oh my God, that's the problem. They don't want to talk about what I think is coming out. They've been working on this stuff for years. They want to talk about what they're working on. And E3 just created unrealistic expectations. And by doing Nintendo Directs, I think they've shown that they set the expectations, and that by disappointing you a week ahead of time, you're more likely to be happy when you see what's really cool, because you've already been disappointed. You've had that time. You've had that grieving period to be like, well, it's not going to be a new Zelda,
I think the most important topic or the most important conversation we should be having right now is, Sam, what do you think, Sam?
Well, actually, I agree with a lot of what's been saying. So I've been just kind of, and you guys have way more experience about E3 than I do. I've only been once, and it was 2 years ago, the second year that they kind of made it this more consumer-friendly show in the past. And I totally agree. I think it's going to be weird moving forward, just to see like how fans react to this type of stuff. Because, from a business standpoint, we can say all day that this might be better, this might be worse, but the fans are really going to be, I guess, sort of the guiding factor on what will be then the future of E3. Like, if fans are okay with these digital events and stuff like that, I don't want to say E3 will ever be done, really, but, you could eventually see that. And I think even these businesses and stuff are going to have to look at what does that mean for us on a calendar of reveals if we were to lose that show. But I totally agree that, Nintendo has sort of paved this way with the digital landscape, but then you also have Microsoft wanting to make these in-house or these sort of experiences for people, doing those like Xbox days. I can't think what they were calling their event, but basically
XO1 or whatever the
XO. They called it XO, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like, the like 200 biggest Xbox fans are here to like play the coolest new Xbox stuff and then spread it amongst our community. And we may see more stuff like that. It's going to be really interesting. And this will be the first year for a while, I guess, that I am, quote, not in the industry anymore, so more coming at it as a fan as opposed to like somebody who's like, okay, well, I've got to know what's going on so I can cover it, or find out information for potential things to cover later. So I'm just kind of super interested, right? Like, just to see like what we're gonna do, and even from our standpoint of a company that's here to kind of cover this stuff, like what do we end up doing? Do we end up spending an entire week doing podcasts like we've done in the past, or do we just kind of like, maybe run a bunch of trailers and talk over them or something? Like, it'll all just have to be at the discrepancy of what sort of situations we get from these companies. And
you can't plan coverage. Like I think that's the thing, is being a former journalist, is when I was a sports journalist, I always could count on, I was a preps reporter, and every summer there was a big state championship event that lasted about 4 days. And I could always count on that giving me a ton of stories. And I would also plan on using that to fill my summer calendar when there's no school and there's no preps sports going on. So I relied on that, and I could reliably just plan weeks of a newspaper around that one event. that's exactly what you're describing there, is that you went from knowing, well, we're going to do a podcast Monday, podcast Tuesday, podcast Wednesday, to what are we going to do? What are they going to give us? Like what? And that's a lot of uncertainty. So
it's going to be a true litmus test for just E3, not just E3, but the gaming industry in general going forward on this format, because we talked about CES and auto shows and things like that and how those are all changing, but gaming stands potentially to be affected most from from the moving or the changing times of these industry events, because it's all digital interaction. I mean, games are, unless you're putting on a Nintendo Lego set, games are meant to be played, for the most part, you're at home in front of your TV playing. It's not like you're using technology to drive around. You're going to, using a robot bartender or anything. These are even though they're multiplayer, they're online, they're still very personal experiences. And so I think the games industry, and understanding how a changing E3, a disappearing E3, or even these global pandemic type of events, and we've barely touched on it, but when these types of events, I don't say barely, when these types of events happen, the ones that are most primed to benefit are things like the gaming industry and esports, because we can immediately go digital, right? You can't really do that with a car. They tried, I saw a lot of my buddies did virtual motor shows for I think it was the Geneva Motor Show, virtual Geneva Motor Shows. And all they did was they posted the photographs that were provided by, the PR photographs sent to them and the press releases, and maybe an interview. You didn't get a chance to sit in the vehicles. You didn't get a chance to do any of that kind of stuff. And so a virtual car show doesn't really work. Virtual CES doesn't really work, that well, but virtual game show might work, or, things like that. And so I think planning around a big, seismic event like this, I think gaming stands to gain the most, just from a cultural standpoint, but also, obviously we mentioned lose some from that industry standpoint. So it is going to be a real interesting litmus test going forward. I will say this. Right now it's about 10:48, and we've been chatting for over an hour and a half, and
we just got carried away.
We got carried away, and I still got to hit my my Apple Watch goals. That means I got to hop on the Ring Fit for another 120 calories and watch Jeff Grubb play Animal Crossing and piss me off. Nintendo release Animal Crossing early. But I do want to say, as sort of parting thoughts, and I'll ask this to everybody, actually, because we haven't really done this. Reed, what are the next few weeks here? What are you most looking forward to gaming wise?
I think that it kind of twofold, and I'll try to keep it quick. The first thing is I don't really know what the school situation is going to be like for my kid.
Yep.
And I love playing games with her, and I love sharing that passion with her. And she's a Mario Kart fiend.
Nice.
And she's really into Mario Party now. And I work at home, and my wife's a lawyer, and the courts are not going to close, or at least as far as I'm concerned, she's still going to have to practice law somewhere in a courtroom. So it's going to be daddy-daughter time, and
that's cool.
If I can't go out, and take her places because of coronavirus, there's not a whole lot for us to do other than gather around the TV. And we talked about screen time being an issue, but this is where screen time is going to be bonding time, since we can't go out. And I'd love to take her up to the playground out in the neighborhood, but there might be, they might say, hey, don't even do that. So I'm looking forward to being able to just have some time to play some games with her. And Animal Crossing, I think, is one that I've never really played an Animal Crossing game, so I can kind of discover it with her and have a lot of fun with it. But the other thing I'm kind of looking forward to is just sort of really seeing what community of gamers does, because I think that gamers are unique from any other industry, which is that we care so much about our product that we rally around these products in weird ways. People get into Horizon Zero Dawn is announced on the PC, and people lose their minds, freak out. But that's just sort of the passion about it. That's also the sort of passion people have around this industry. And I think you might see people revitalize games that we used to love from years ago and say, let's play this because we haven't played it in years and we got nothing to do, or people attacking the backlog. I think people are going to have I'm excited to kind of just, I'm excited to just kind of have a reason to play games because there's nothing else to do other than do some work from home, hang out with the kid, play games with her, but also, I might not be able to go to the gym and work out. And so, I don't have Ring Fit Adventure, but I might just, dive into some of my Steam library. And so I think that I'm really interested to see how communities react, what sort of things communities do for each other. Also, as people get sick, and I hate to say it, but as people get sick, what kind of happens when like someone who's a big name in say Counter-Strike gets sick? And like how does the community react around that? How do we share tips? Like how do we pull each other through this? Because we play games because they're fun, and a lot of these games are online, and we make a lot of friends online through them. And the way we're going to get through a big crisis is not just through pop culture, but through each other. Yeah. And I'm sure that I'll see you playing Animal Crossing, like you're seeing Jeff Grubb do it, and I'll say, I want to visit Dolly's Island. And that's something maybe I wouldn't do last week because you're busy, I'm busy, we've got other things going on, and I'm just going to go play a game, play it for a bit, and check out. I'm just really excited to see how communities react and how they rally around together.
What about you, Aaron? How are you gonna be approaching these next couple weeks or the next few weeks? And it could be related to the coronavirus. It could be related to gaming releases. It could be anything. I think there's a lot of stuff happening right now. So,
well, I mean, my day job, I run a store, and it's not a store that sells necessity products. So I'm pretty confident business is going to drop off at least for the next little while, which naturally leads me into thinking it might be time to re-up that Final Fantasy 14 subscription.
There you go.
Get paid to play that.
I think it was you, Reed, or somebody that mentioned, that this is the prime time for MMOs and free-to-play games to really kind of take hold because you're getting bang for your buck. Sam, what about you? What are you kind of looking forward to over the next few weeks here?
Well, I just got to figure out from a job standpoint what that looks like. Thankfully, I'm actually full time, so it's not like I'm losing my job, even though we're losing all the activities that my job entails. But from like an industry standpoint, like it is going to be interesting. We are in a new console launch year. And we were already having people shift sort of their plans of how things were going even before coronavirus and all these sort of E3 and different event cancellations. But we'll have to see. And I'm very interested in seeing like how these companies deliver their messages, how you're going to get to experience these things that maybe some people would have had hands-on time with before, but probably won't now, unless you're a part of a select crew. And just kind of seeing, what does a console launch look like in a year that might have some of those launch games even delayed out because you don't have a workforce really supporting that as much as you would have before. So, yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic, I guess. Always excited to learn what Nintendo's sort of go-to is for the year. So, really looking forward to hopefully we get one of those directs sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to tackle like as much of a gaming backlog as I can. I think last year I only finished Death Stranding and like I think about 95% of Control. I didn't even get to the end of that. So, I've got a whole bunch of games that I wanted to get to. And, we have now entered the era where like I think you can buy God of War right now for $5. Like, everything that was super good a year and a half ago was cheap, so might as well jump on that and try to get through some of those bigger titles. And hopefully, I was planning a trip with some of the guys back from high school and stuff, but it sounds like that's going to fall through. But we all still play PlayStation together, occasionally, so we'll probably see an increase in that, and hopefully something cooler than Smite shows up, so we have a good game to play for once. But yeah, it's going to be weird. The last like 36 hours for me, like things have changed by the hour. So if you ask me in an hour, I might be like, nah, I'm just ready to just sit at home for the next.
I do want to be. Go ahead, Reed. And I get.
I was just gonna say you mentioned something. I'll be very. Game development is going to change, and I think that a lot of games that are scheduled to come out are going to get delayed, and It doesn't work, and not because the game doesn't look good enough, but because the fact that everyone has to work from home means that your game director is not there to come and check on the progress game. You can't all meet in the same office. You can't have the dev team crunch.
We've already had some game. I mean,
like,
Outer Worlds is impacted, right, for the Switch,
Yeah.
and so that's being delayed until an unknown.
And so I think you're going to see a lot of games, and potentially even consoles, maybe get delayed because you don't have that workforce in an office where you can get the stuff done.
Especially, I mean, we just read we didn't really cover it, but we just read about some the Naughty Dog. There were some big crunch issues there.
Yes.
Last of Us 2, and so if that's happening, and you're asking people to work from home now, that could be causing types of delays. I think for my let me ask you one quick question, Sam, because you do work in kind of the college sports area, and there's no live sports right now, so things for what what you do could be changing, at least for the immediate time being. Has there been like a call for esports, or has there been interest in maybe starting to look at showcasing esports on some of the network stuff that you guys do?
Well, I know this might give it away, but one of the
don't worry, nobody listens to our podcast anyways.
Yeah.
You're fine.
The network in which our league is broadcast through does in fact have a Twitch channel.
Okay.
And they've been creating content there. My actual league doesn't have anything. We do have I think there's one or two schools that participate in the Hearthstone league.
Okay.
But as far as that, none of in our conference have any esports teams that are scholarships or anything.
This is the moment. Maybe you can make that recommendation, I guess.
It's certainly something that they're going to explore. We have a hold on recruitment and all types of stuff right now, so it's kind of we're kind of at the whims of what the NCAA decides going forward. We are, earlier today, we were all still going to be working in our offices and basically planning what the next year and what, summer looks like and summer camps and stuff like that for different teams. But I mean, even 8:00 tonight, East Coast time, I was told that we would be working remotely starting on Monday. And, I can prep for next year's basketball season, but other than that, I don't know what my job looks like remotely.
Sure. You don't know,
over a week. By Wednesday, I'm going to have nothing to do. So it's going to be interesting.
And we're just getting the note that our governor's about to close all kindergarten, all elementary schools. So that's gonna be crazy. Oh boy. So
I mentioned at the top of the show all the different sports that were currently on hiatus because of coronavirus. I just saw that Canada's got a vaccine.
All right, we're coming over. I'm gonna give real quick my thoughts. I think I'm actually really interested in how this rest of the year is going to look. I think we're going to get a few announcements. Of course, we have some big games right now. I'm looking forward to Animal Crossing and just kind of zoning out on an island because who knows when I'll be able to leave the state anytime soon. But I'm looking forward to Animal Crossing and playing that. I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy because it's Final Fantasy and it's awesome. Doom Eternal. I'm actually going to wait for the Switch version because the port artists have been doing a phenomenal job. But that's awesome. And then for me, it's just really understanding what's going to happen because we only know through June. You have Cyberpunk and Avengers if that comes out this year. But beyond that, that little area of September and some of the sports games, you don't know what Nintendo, what Sony, and what Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft has Halo, but we don't know enough about that. We don't know anything that's really happening the second half of the year, and to me, I think we will start hearing some rumblings these next few weeks of whether it's schedule shifts or, products or whatever. But I'm kind of excited. I'm hoping for safety at the same time, just hoping that, I'm looking forward to seeing what new products are coming out. With that said, let's shut this down. It's 2 hours. You can find us at SideQuesting.com, SideQuesting TV on the Twitch. You can find me at Dolly Domovsky. Sam, you can't find him anywhere because he's going to be out in Animal Crossing Island next week. He's holed up.
I saw him on Twitter.
He saw him on Twitter. Yeah, he tweeted back at me.
That's right. I did tweet today. Well, on my private locked Twitter account. But
where can we find you, Aaron Scratty Bones Kelly?
You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at ScrattyBones, where I will stream a game and talk about the fact that Reggie Fils-Aimé is appointed to GameStop.
Nice.
He's
There you
running
go.
the show.
There you go. There you go. And Reed, where can we find you?
At Reed S. Albers on Twitter. And
Oops, say it again. You're breaking up just a little bit. Can you say it
oh
again?
my God, sorry. Said I'll be at Reed S. Albers on Twitter, and also at some bar crying in my drinks that Bonnaroo's going to get canceled. And there goes what I was going to do E3 week.
There we go. There we go. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Reed, for coming on the show. Thanks, Sam and Aaron. We did it, everybody. We survived another episode somehow. The world survived our episode. That's maybe even worse than the coronavirus.
That was a hell of a show. I don't think we've had a long one like this in a while.
Thank you for letting me come on and talk your heads off, because that's what I'm good at.
Well, we'll see y'all. We love you. See you in the next episode of The SideQuest. Adios. And this is where I usually wait for a little bit
10,
of
20 seconds.
And
10, 20 seconds. And we all
and claps.